Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another fantastic-ish episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the BIP-COT No Government License, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is bipcot.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion is entirely hypothetical. This is episode 164. I guess we'll call it the Green Bay Hangover, Andrew, something like that.
Yeah, bullshit. It's bullshit.
That's why they play the game.
Some people played that game. It was apparently not the Green Bay Packers special teams, but I think everyone else there was trying to play football.
They borrowed a Jinko team.
Yeah, like, oh my
Junior
god.
College.
Yeah, like it. Those are the and Crosby has consistently been bad for so damn long. I don't know why they keep him on the payroll. And then you watch him, and it's like you can count how long it's taking him to get that ball kicked. 1, 2, 3. Of course it's blocked, moron. You're taking forever.
Twice the punt and the field goal were both blocked.
Yeah, and then when the punt gets blocked, then everybody just stands there like, I wonder where the ball went. And no one bothers to look up at the ball going straight up into the air and hanging there forever.
And then on top of that, on the field goal on the last play, they only had 10 men on the field.
Yeah, and then they only had 10 guys on the field. So obviously you weren't going to block that and put it into overtime. You didn't have enough people.
No.
That was just a complete failure all around. It's only the second one of the playoff games I failed to call, so I'm still doing pretty good on that.
Yeah. I don't. My Niners didn't really win that game as much as Green Bay lost that game.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and they were really evenly matched, and
clearly. That's how we beat Dallas too.
I know. I will say though, this playoff season has been ridiculous because it's 3 games now that have been determined in the last 2 minutes of the game. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
The Rams Bucks game earlier was the same sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's kind of number 4 there, where under 5 minutes left of play.
27 Rams were up 27-3.
Yeah, and they just I got to watch Tom Brady get sacked several times though. So
you can't leave Tom Brady with that kind of time.
Yeah.
But Niners Rams, another for the 3rd time this season.
Yep.
Rams. Although the Niners beat them the other 2 times.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that's different now.
And technically, the Niners have beat the Rams the last 6 times in a row that they played.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I keep laughing about the fact that I'm like, if the Rams make it, seeing Matthew Stafford in a Super Bowl, is something that I never, ever would have thought was going to happen.
It'd be kind of like, because Robbie Gould made that kick for the Niners, right? He's an ex-Bears kicker for a long time. Matt Stafford with the Rams. So either way, there's going to be an NFC North former star in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And and the funny thing is about it too, that made me laugh is
Josh. That's cold. Josh says Josh says, no, hey, where's Green Bay?
Yeah, no, go Rams at this point. That's actually who I'm really rooting for. I really want to see the Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals.
In the Super Bowl.
That's what we were talking about. We want Bengals and Niners in the Super Bowl. Just so we can get the flashbacks to '88 and we can get the Iggy Shuffle out there, and just please.
That would be. I mean, and I pointed out to Lindsay, because she was born in October of '88. I said, the Bengals have literally never been this far in your entire lifetime, ever.
Yeah.
Like, that's how long it's been. And I mean, for a while there, it was looking like it might be Chiefs Packers, and I was like, holy crap, the 101st season, we're gonna have a repeat of Super Bowl I. Like, that would be super cool.
We can, and the possibility exists that we could have a home team in the Super Bowl.
That would be great. Well, that happened when New Orleans was in, right?
No,
that it was in New Orleans.
No, New Orleans won.
No?
New Orleans. That was New Orleans' first year back in New England, or in New Orleans after Katrina. The Super Bowl wasn't there.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
So the Rams are still in it, so they could have a home field. But
that would be a little weird. Go Rams! I want to see the 49ers lose. That will make me very, very happy. And I want to see them lose, like the last couple of minutes, have an absolute heartbreaker. It just shatters them morally, and I'll feel better about that. And then I also want to see Cincinnati, so that I can get a Cincinnati LA game.
No.
Midwest versus West Coast. That's also why I'm rooting for Cincinnati, is because they're also a Midwestern team. So,
on that note, let's we could talk about a win ish. That's almost as bad. We could talk about, I don't know if it's a loss that's almost as bad, or is a win that's almost as bad. This is the one that was not on the list.
Oh, okay.
Appeals court says it's entirely possible for cops to pinpoint marijuana odors in moving cars. Oh, no. Hold on. Cops are still claiming they can detect the odor of marijuana in moving vehicles. Not only that, they claim they can pinpoint the source even when in traffic. Okay, I'm going to jump down a few paragraphs. Decision from the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, which originated in Iowa. The same claims were made here by two officers who used their apparently superhuman olfactory senses to locate weed in a passing car, one that similarly traveled through heavy traffic. In this case, both the cop car and the targeted car had their windows down, but even so, it is difficult to believe officers were capable of pinpointing the odor in traffic while dealing with, quote, swirling winds.
Like, what? Officer Bloodhound. Yeah.
No, hold on. Okay, this is from the October 5th, 2019. The officers were on patrol in a marked squad car. Officer Steinkamp, Stienkamp, drove the car, and Officer Garrett sat in the front seat, and Officer Meehan sat in the back seat. So there's 3 cops in this car. The squad car's front windows were up, but its back windows were down. At 5:49 p.m., the officers were driving westbound on a city street behind a black sedan that had its windows up. According to weather records, the wind was traveling between 13 and 17 miles per hour. The officers did not smell marijuana while driving behind the black sedan. As the officers approached a 4-way intersection, they saw a red Chevy Impala traveling eastbound abruptly turn left in front of the oncoming black sedan. The Impala's, quote, passenger side window was down. At the intersection, the officers turned right and started driving northbound on the same street as the Impala. Shortly after making the right turn, the officers, quote, started smelling the odor of marijuana, and that's what drew their attention to the Impala. Hold on. The squad car was approximately 100 meters behind the Impala when the officers first smelled the odor. The officers were in the left lane while the squad car was directly behind the black sedan in the right lane. The officers do not believe the black sedan was the odor source because its windows were up. They never smelled marijuana while following the black sedan before turning right. They were able, so according to them, they were able to smell marijuana with the front windows up, only the back window was down, during a 13 to 17 mile an hour forecasted wind while driving 100 meters behind a vehicle.
So even a bloodhound, an actual bloodhound, would be unable to pinpoint the source of that scent in those conditions. You're more than 300 feet behind this vehicle
with a 13 to 17 mile an hour wind. In a moving vehicle with only the back window down.
Yeah, only the one I would assume it's one back window down, which means that's also swirling in and back out again.
Yes, Josh. Yes, okay. Josh. A football field behind the vehicle.
Yeah, that's 100 meters is like 330 feet right around.
Yeah.
So supposedly in gale force winds, because that's what that would all amount to. Gale force winds, they're able to detect the exact source of the smell of pot, unless those people in that vehicle had been Cheech and Chong and had filled the entire car with smoke and then rolled their windows down all at once. There is no way that you knew that it's from that car.
Oh, you know this gets better, right?
Of course it does.
The officers changed lanes and sped up to position the squad car close behind the Impala in the left lane. A black truck was immediately in front of the Impala. An SUV was farther ahead in the right lane. The road was busy at the time. The officers drove directly behind the Impala for several blocks, approximately 30 seconds, to make sure that they knew for certain, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was the vehicle that has the odor of the marijuana emitting from it. They drove several blocks in 30 seconds.
How fast are they claiming they were going?
It does not say in this little article.
So let's see. What's the average?
I gotta figure like 45 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, something like that. So Mr. Christopher, what's up, brother?
How's it going, guys? What a weekend.
So the average length of a block is about 325 feet. So about how far they were behind that car. Yes. They traveled that distance
in 30 seconds,
multiple times.
Yes,
in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's not possible. So.
I find that, I mean, I could see crossing an entire block in 30 seconds because that's only 10 feet
you
a
have
second.
To be hauling ass.
But yeah, to multiple blocks, like what, 900, 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet? 1,200, figure maybe 1,200, 1,300 feet is what they're claiming they went in 30 seconds.
Yes.
On top of claiming that in gale force winds,
13 to 17 miles, 13 to 7 mile an hour forecasted winds, plus the winds created by the vehicles moving.
Right, which is probably another 25 mile an hour wind. So again, gale force winds, in gale force winds from more than 320 feet back.
Yes.
They claim they managed to smell the marijuana and pinpoint its source in that vehicle.
We're talking about a ruling from the 8th Circuit. That's in Iowa. That cops stopped at a four-way stop behind a vehicle. A vehicle drove past them. Right, they turned right, and they were able to smell marijuana with their front windows up. The back window was down, and they were able to smell marijuana from a vehicle that was 100 meters ahead of them, with a forecasted 13 to 17 mile an hour winds. They were able to pinpoint the vehicle that had the marijuana smell emitting from it. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, agreed with them.
Either that is the skunkiest weed on the planet. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like simply opening the baggie gets everybody high. Like that's what's kind of happening. Like, which means that those dudes in that car, like how they were even conscious, I'm not sure. Like they had to be fucking stoned.
Yes.
in order for that. But like the only way, because I've had cars drive past me, right? When I'm standing on a street corner, I've had cars drive past me and you can tell they're smoking pot in the car. Like you can definitely smell
Yes.
it. But that's because they drove within 5 feet of me with their windows down. And as they went by, I smelled it for a second and then it was gone, which means it's got to be that car.
And it
Yes.
was a calm day.
Yeah. And it's a calm day. There's no wind. So like you
Yes.
can tell. But when you're talking about those kinds of winds dispersing all of that, you know, all of the scent particles that are out there, again, a fucking bloodhound, a trained bloodhound would have been unable to achieve what they're claiming. And especially because they're also claiming that they traveled 1,000 feet in 30 seconds.
They were able to get behind the vehicle, and for several blocks, approximately 30 seconds.
So they're claiming, they're claiming they were doing probably 120 miles an hour,
Something along
if
those
not
lines.
more,
So
in order to also follow them for 30 seconds and go
so-
several blocks.
So again, the story gets better.
Of course it does.
The officers claimed that the driver had been smoking and driving, thus justifying the search. The search uncovered no evidence of this claim. According to the court documents, quote, in addition to the marijuana cigarettes, the officers also recovered a digital scale with trace amounts of marijuana residue on it, a loaded 9mm pistol in the center console. They did not find embers or smoke in the ashtray or a lighter.
So they definitely were not smoking it. So these officers, you know what you need to do with these 3 cops clearly is you need to make them part of the TSA to sniff out explosives, because clearly they have the greatest sense of smell of any animal on the face of planet Earth.
Hold on. Again, this gets better. Expert witnesses on both sides offered their findings, which were contradictory. The court decided to side with the officer's expert, who claimed it was possible to pinpoint marijuana odors while driving in heavy traffic. But he also said, quote, he admitted that marijuana cigarettes are hard to smell if they are in a closed container, and that none of the marijuana cigarettes found in the vehicle's ashtray appeared to be burning.
So they smelled it on a vehicle that was driving in cross traffic, managed to pinpoint it over the course of several city blocks.
That they were
Yes.
driving 120 miles an hour long.
And
Because they said several city blocks in 30 seconds. A city block is about 300 meters long. And so they had to have been traveling.
300,
Right.
300, about 325 feet, I think is what the city block
Yeah.
was.
325 is the standard city block size.
Right, so like 100 meters.
Yeah.
Ish.
So they're
It's a
60,
little less than 100 meters, but yeah.
Yeah, and 60 miles an hour is like 30, just under 30 meters per second. So they're between 120 and 180 miles an hour is what they're claiming to have gone to catch up to them.
Now
To catch up to a vehicle that they claim they smelled marijuana smoke emanating from, but found marijuana cigarettes in the ashtray, but none of them were lit.
Yep.
Yes, and there was no lighter.
And there was no lighter anywhere.
Yes. And again, the appeals court sides with the cops and the lower court's finding because the officers were consistent in the claims that they smelled marijuana. Quote, vehicles at the stop show the officers making statements both before and during the stop, indicating they smelled burnt marijuana coming from the car while driving behind him. While 100 meters back in a 13 to 17 mile an hour forecasted wind in a moving vehicle with the front windows up.
Well, I mean, they're telling the exact same lie constantly, so it's got to be true, right?
Right.
A lie told enough times becomes the truth.
Yeah, it's just... And again, this is all to support throwing somebody in jail for having a plant.
Mm-hmm.
Just for possession of a plant, because they weren't high, right? They weren't charged with a DWI. They had no lighter, so they weren't smoking unless they had like laser vision or fire fingers, or were able to start it up that way.
They were using one of those little magnifying glasses and just focusing the light as they drove along.
Now they had an arc lighter.
The guy in the passenger seats, quit moving, Holmes. I'm trying to light the joint.
Yeah, trying to hold it. And, I burned myself. I burned myself again.
There's ants in heaven just laughing at him.
Yeah, he's got a tinder box with a flint, and he's sitting there
striking it. Yeah,
magnesium striker.
No wonder they get so many burn marks in their carpet. Jesus, it's
just there's a whole story. First of all, is insane.
Yeah,
yeah.
But the fact that the eighth said, "Okay, yeah, we believe you," is equally as insane.
Yeah,
one would argue more insane.
Yeah, because they're supposed to be the arbiters of logic and law and truth, right?
I mean, and presumably the attorney did bring up like everything that we've just brought up. The defense attorney was like, "So you're claiming like you do understand what these numbers mean actually happened, right? Like that's what you're claiming." And then the court, and that's the insane thing, is after all these numbers that are clearly insane and made up are demonstrated to be insane and made up, they're like, well, I mean, but they kept telling the same lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the court's essentially saying, well, because they kept claiming this thing that couldn't possibly be true over and over again, that makes it true now.
Yeah. Which ties into so many things that are going on in the world right now.
Yeah. The court also says the ends can be justified by the means. Quote, officers Stenkamp, Meanham, and Garrett testified consistently that they smelled burnt marijuana while driving behind Shoemaker. And their testimony was corroborated by the video statements, Schumacher's behavior, Fry's expert testimony, and the evidence recovered from the car.
Yeah. The evidence, but it doesn't, because the evidence recovered from the car evidence shows that there was no burning marijuana in the vehicle.
Right.
No. No, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
that they were able to smell burning cannabis in a vehicle that had no burning cannabis 100 meters behind it, while driving with a 13 to 17 mile an hour forecasted wind.
Yeah, even at 25, that's impossible. And considering they claim to be going, like F1 racer speeds in that time period, you definitely didn't smell it then.
No.
In a Ford Explorer.
With the windows up. With the front windows. The front windows are up. So only the back window was down.
If they really were doing 180, you got to feel bad for the guy that was in the back seat with his window down, because he's like
the aerodynamics of the vehicle have to prevent that from happening in the first place.
I mean, yeah, aerodynamically that doesn't seem likely, but with enough thrust, I mean, who knows? Maybe they had a couple of J24 engines on there, and then just
they had those big unaerodynamic tow mirrors that were poking out and were messing up the aerodynamics or something.
My God, what? Were you in a fucking McLaren? What? You traveled several blocks in 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yeah. Oh man, that's just so bad, so bad. Let's see. You guys want to do another bad one? Or a good one. Andrew wanted to talk about the COVID. Are we far enough into this that they're not going to ding us? Yeah, we're 20 minutes into it. Okay.
I got my FEMA coronavirus summer camp shirt.
No,
I just went with tread on those.
I just have a boring gray shirt with a pocket.
I have expected to see you in a Jimmy G jersey.
No, I hate Jimmy G.
Let's say he's a 49ers fan. He doesn't wear Jimmy G jerseys.
Did you have anything in particular you wanted to talk about with the protest?
I mean, not particularly. Like, I was just really jazzed because, like, today there was in Brussels, there was these huge protests going on. They attacked a bunch of the EU government buildings in Belgium and like broke out windows and like firebombed it and stuff. There was also gigantic protests in Paris today. There was a lot of protests in London. There was also protests in Washington, D.C. today against
the protests in Washington, D.C. Like the biggest thing I saw from the protests in Washington, D.C. was people complaining that there were unvaccinated people there wearing gold stars on their shirts that said unvaccinated.
Well, yeah, because that's the point.
Like not that they were there, not why they were there, not the story, not that, oh my God, it's a super spreader, blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff mattered to these people. The only thing I saw negative is that they were wearing gold stars that said unvaccinated.
Yeah, they found it offensive because it's a reference to the
literally entirely justifies them wearing the gold stars. That
exactly
right.
Hence my FEMA summer camp thing. Like, hence we're all going to be thrown in camps.
And it's like that patch that I was showing you guys, that we're working on getting made up, where it's a picture of a virus and it says Untermensch on it. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of them. Like they're what I really like today is there's a lot of videos online from protests today all across the country. I mean, they had them. I think they had one here. There was a big one in Denver. You know, Polis there in Colorado. He already said that we're not going to enforce anything, and he was going to leave it up to the individual cities. And then, but Washington D.C. was the supposed big one, because you know Joe Biden cares and all that good stuff, right?
Yeah,
Joe Biden doesn't even realize he's in D.C.
But
half the time, you know,
he actually. I saw the other day that in his first year, he spent 108 days in Delaware. That's his home state. So he spent a third of the year outside of, or which, okay, that's fine. I don't care. Like, that's not a big deal. Everybody's doing teleconferencing anyways. You know, work from home. Home's in Delaware. But
well, it's just across the river too. So
well, I mean, I'm sure his hospice nurses can't quite get clearance into the
But I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's right across the river too. But
Biden's in Delaware. The body doubles in Washington D.C.
You know, personally though, I would like to see Biden make that 356 days that he's not in the White House. I would like the entire government to just be on vacation for 356 days a year.
But
every year.
I was gonna say that the like domestically, I didn't see any videos of violence. I didn't see any like police crackdowns. They were all like really peaceful, which kind of makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
disappointing.
But overseas, like the videos from Belgium, I don't know if you guys have seen those.
Yeah, with the fire hoses and
I shared one in our Telegram chat, and I just it like 2020 gave us a lot of violence against police officers and so I'm kind of desensitized to it, right? Living here in the Bay Area also, because we have, you know, protests every 2 or 3 months, and you know Oakland is no stranger to protest violence and all the other stuff. So I see it a lot, and I'm kind of desensitized to it. But I saw something in the Belgian one, the video from Belgium, that completely blew me away, and it was cops that were retreating, and they were retreating down this stairway into like a subway system. And the people that were on top were throwing things at them, which is fine. But they were throwing trash cans. There was a trash can that was on fire. They threw down the stairs, which like, that's a big. They were throwing the metal bars, the metal railing. You know what I'm talking about? Like you lock your bikes up to.
Yeah.
Like as the cops were retreating down the stairs, they were throwing those over the railing onto the cops. Like I had never like I've seen people fight back against the cops and use all these cool little, you know, gadgets and homemade things and all this good stuff. But that was the first time I've ever seen that, and for some reason, like that really stood out to me. And I'm like, just holy fuck, these people are like, they're done. They're not gonna go through with the mandate bullshit.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Ireland has announced, just like the UK, that they're going to lift any and all restrictions, basically. Like any of their coronavirus stuff is just done. They're giving up. Part of the reason that Ireland has given up doing that is because the RA in particular was starting to be like, if you're going to keep pulling a Britain and try and restrict people's movement, we're going to have a problem. And at that point, Ireland's like, hey, what? We're lifting the restrictions. Look at that. Because they knew what was coming if they didn't. And we're seeing these mass protests, like 50,000 people in Paris, and, you know, and like 25,000 in Italy, and, you know, in Belgium and Luxembourg. We're seeing these huge protests. We're even seeing giant protests in Germany and Austria.
I just saw a video actually just before I hopped on that was from Germany, where there was like 100 and some odd thousand people in the streets of Berlin.
Yeah,
huge, massive amounts of people.
Huge protests all over the world. And then there's the United States.
Yeah.
And it's just not doing anything. It hasn't been doing much the entire time. It hasn't been saying much. It's been, you know, I mean, part of that you could argue is because we kind of headed off those mandates and stuff in the courts. And so because the courts reacted, it never had to come to that.
Over the states, the federal government here doesn't have the same kind of power and authority that they have over, you know, France and England and Italy and the EU in general. So, or China and you know, the Middle East. So the states were able to largely like federally now, the government didn't have a lot to do with COVID. Right. I mean, there was a few restrictions here and there with like the TSA and the federal worker mandates. And then they gave people money. Right. But that was largely until Biden issued the mandates. Right. The companies over 100 employee mandate, which got backfired. So it was largely up to the states. And there were some states that did fucking nothing, like South Dakota did nothing. Iowa had a mask mandate for like 2 weeks, and they're like, no, we're not going to do this anymore.
And well, that's like where Andrew and I live in Wisconsin, where Tony Evers kept trying to push his limits and push his limits. And then even though the state Supreme Court has a leftist majority, they still ruled, they still shot it down like, dude, the law specifically says you can't do this.
Yeah, like the people who framed the Wisconsin state constitution actually specifically wrote in there, like, even though you get some emergency powers, they literally have a defined this amount of time on them. And then no matter what, even if the emergency is continuing, your power is done.
Yeah, that's what happened in
Congress gives it to you.
Yeah, that's what happened in New Hampshire. Emperor Sununu, he had a mask mandate and all this other stuff put out there, and that got struck down by the courts. And then the state legislature passed a bill that limited his ability to pass emergency orders over like 28 days or 30 days or something like that. So like that was largely unenforced in New Hampshire. Florida, the same sort of thing. And then like there's places like Idaho. I don't know if you guys follow Idaho at all. Montana said fuck you no, right? Wyoming said fuck you no. Jackson had my friends in Wyoming, they said people in Jackson wore some masks. There's a few of those little liberal offshoots, little communities there in Jackson that had the masks, but largely Wyoming's like fuck you no. But Idaho, Brad Little, the governor, Republican, he had a bunch of mask mandates and some COVID emergency stuff that he had instituted, and then every time he left, the lieutenant governor signed orders declaring his bills unconstitutional and illegal, and instituted her own, which were like, you can't enforce this shit, right? No mask mandates, no, vax mandates, no employer mandates, nothing. And then when Brad Little would come back into town, he'd write an executive order eliminating hers and reinstituting his. right? So it was this back and forth thing in Idaho, and like it was Boise. Like Boise went along with it, and then every other part of the state's like, fuck you, no.
No, you can't make me.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
And then Brown,
even at the height of it,
Governor Brown in Oregon, she had some really bad like mask mandates and COVID mandates and all this other bullshit that went through. And now the Oregon legislature, there's a bill going through that would give her permanent emergency order powers. Like, so she could declare an emergency and not remove it or declare an emergency over until she wanted to.
I am the Senate.
pretty much.
It's just
Easily in Washington, he had the same sort of thing that he wanted to do what Brown did, and largely Washington went with it, on the western side of the Cascades. Like one of my favorite podcasts, Prepping 2.0. Glenn Tate, that's the stage name that he uses. Like he had he was due for like some bowel issue, right? It was like an elective procedure. He was going to go to the doctors and get checked out. Well, easily canceled all the like elective procedures, right? So Glenn went like 8 months without this procedure until he collapsed and they rushed him to the hospital. And they're like, "Oh, you have cancer. This could have been prevented if you had been seen earlier." Well, he couldn't have been seen because of the executive order, right?
Oh.
He's fine now, and they left. They moved to Western Montana. But like that's the sort of thing that like people are just like they're fuck about it. They're over it. They're done. Like they see that the COVID is not as bad as the government told you, as all these emergency orders dictate, and now they're like, fuck we're done. We're done with this. We're done putting people through this. It's harming our kids. My kids are tired of wearing masks. They want to go back to school. They want to see their friends. They want to play Little League baseball again, and we're done with this. And that's happening like everywhere except the United States.
Well, yeah, and like even in Germany, like there was a couple of former like their Supreme Court justices who said that like all of these orders that Germany's been instituting are actually unconstitutional under their constitution, and are not in fact legal, and predicted like once it makes its way through the court, these lawsuits against it, that it's going to wind up getting struck down, going to be found to be unconstitutional. But what I think is interesting, and why I wanted to mention Brussels specifically, is that the people who showed up to this otherwise completely peaceful protest and started smashing in the buildings were Black Bloc Antifa.
Yep.
Because the Antifa in Europe actually remembers what the Nazis did and remembers what a Nazi looks like.
Okay, I
Nazis.
got a quote for you real quick. This is from the Human Rights Watch. At least 83 governments worldwide have used the COVID-19 pandemic to justify violating the exercise of free speech and peaceful assembly. Authorities have attacked, detained, prosecuted, and in some cases killed critics, broken up peaceful protests, closed media outlets, and enacted vague laws criminalizing speech they claim threatens public health. The victim includes journalists, activists, healthcare workers, political opposition groups, and others who have criticized government responses to the coronavirus. Governments and other state authorities should immediately end excessive restriction on free speech in the name of preventing the spread of COVID-19. Yeah.
Well, which is funny because if you ever watched that movie, what is it called? Outbreak with Matt Damon?
No, it's not Matt Damon.
Well, the one with
Hoffman.
Matt Damon.
The
one with Matt Damon.
That is
Contagion. Is that what that one's called? Maybe
something like that.
Where it's supposed to be a flu. It's actually basically describes coronavirus, where it's supposed to be a bat.
That's the one with Jude Law.
Yep.
Right. He keeps bringing up the term "are not."
Yeah, and Jude Law is basically supposed to be kind of an Alex Jones type and stuff, and saying things that the government's saying are wrong and everything. In that movie, they didn't even conceive of the level of censorship and attack that could happen from government and mass media against people who are going, but I'm questioning this narrative. I don't think this is true. I don't think this is really this bad. And even in that one, remember, Matt Damon doesn't have any restrictions on him because he's naturally immune. Like, so even a fictionalized dystopian end of the world virus future that was conceived of less than 10 years ago is still less restrictive. They still thought things would be less restrictive on people than what the coronavirus response actually was from governments.
Yep. Another aspect of this, of the pushback, that a lot of people aren't really talking about, and it's the people that got the jab, that got the boosters, that are quote, fully vaccinated, and still get it. And those people and the people that see those people, they're pissed. Right? You told us that this would prevent this, that we'd be okay, that blah, 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 blah. Well, now they have 4 shots in them of an experimental mRNA. And they're still getting it. They're still, there's still people dying.
And remember Biden saying during his campaign, well, if you get this vaccination, you won't get the coronavirus.
Fauci said that. Also.
Yep, Fauci also said
Fauci said a lot of things, yeah.
That man needs to be physically removed.
We're still alive.
He needs he needs a bath and some hot tar and a visit with some down-filled pillows.
That's a spicy Minecraft game.
Yeah.
Brandenburg v. Ohio.
I'm just saying he's like he cannot be allowed anywhere near microphones or public platforms or anything anymore. And if people need to physically remove him from those platforms, you need to do that, because at this point, this guy has said he is science.
Serious Palpatine vibes there.
Which is such a contradiction. Just on the surface, that's a huge contradiction.
Yeah.
And then you get down into the science of that, the philosophical aspect of that, and it's just like, no, so bad.
To bring up the unfortunate, guy who didn't play very well last night, Aaron Rodgers. I remember a couple of weeks back on Pat McAfee's show, he called out Fauci for that. He said, anything that you can't question that they call him as science isn't science, it's propaganda.
Yep.
I mean, he's right. He's absolutely right.
Science is never settled. If somebody says, no, it's settled, established science, they clearly don't understand how science is supposed to work.
No, you ask questions, you answer the question.
Yeah, there's been a lot of things that, because when I was in school, right, especially when I was in college, I always got told, like, well, because, I majored in history. Well, the established science says this, and that's generally accepted. That's what they said. Well, the generally accepted science says this. The generally accepted thing is this, where it's always left open for interpretation. It wasn't, this is the way it is. It was always like, well, as far as we can tell, this is what's going on, or this is how to interpret it.
Because that left it open for additional information to, refine whatever it was they were trying to tell you.
Well, yeah, and I mean, how many thousands of historical and scientific, breakthroughs have happened over the course of, all of, history and science that have completely shattered what we thought was the case. I mean, the coelacanth being discovered shattered the idea that all of these creatures in the fossil record were extinct. The discovery of the Vinland colony, the Norse colony in Newfoundland, that had been there over 100 years of occupation by the Norse, shattered the idea that Columbus was one of the first Europeans to come to North America. Constantly this happens where what we think is established is wrong, and things are completely different. I mean, quantum physics almost daily has to completely be rewritten because we discover that things start to get a little weird and don't behave the way they're supposed to. Like spooky particles shattered science. quantum entanglement, shattered science. Like these things are all things that like, holy crap, no, everything we've thought about the universe is wrong. That isn't how this actually works. That's, you know, that's one of those things where as soon as somebody goes, no, this is the way science is, this is what it is, it's they're somebody that you should not believe about science. That is not science. That is not science.
And a lot of that goes back, you know, you can apply the same thing to what they talk about in antiquity, where they say, you know, ancient Egyptians built the pyramids and all that stuff. Well, that very well may be true, but with the technology they had at the time, they would have had a hell of a lot harder go of it than what we say. Is it possible that they built them? Sure. But
the Egyptians built the pyramids.
well, I honestly think they're a lot older than ancient Egypt, but hey, that's just me. But I mean, there's so much in question.
Well, it's ancient Egypt where we tested mummies and found out that a whole shit ton of them from the Old Kingdom had cocaine in them, which is a new world drug. How the hell did that happen? We still have no idea. But it does kind of ruin the narrative that there wasn't trade between those two continents, doesn't it? So,
article I just looked at said about 35,000 people showed up to the Washington, D.C. protest.
35,000 versus what, 150,000 in Germany?
Like in a country a fraction of the size population-wise.
Yeah, and a country that, remember, is Germany, which historically tends to kind of go along with authoritarianism.
One time, guys, one time.
It was more than one time.
At least twice.
There's a really good story that James May tells about talking to somebody from Germany where they were talking about, you know, like the German was just kind of like, no, if your license is suspended, you may no longer drive in Germany. And he's like, okay, but you know, like, what if you did? Like, what are the consequences? And he's like, but no, you cannot. Your license is suspended. And he's like, yeah, but I mean, like, what if you did? He's like, no, this is impossible. If your license is suspended, you cannot drive in Germany. Like, that sums up the majority German attitude. Like, no, you just comply. Like, that's still a thing in Germany. It's a cultural thing in Germany.
Chiefs just won 42-36 in overtime.
Holy crap, I might have... Did I call that? I think I might have called that.
I don't know.
I think I called that. Holy crap, I'm still like almost perfect.
No, that sucks.
And that was in overtime. So again, with this is the most insane playoff season that has ever happened. This is ridiculous.
Well, yeah, the preceding 3 games all were walk-off pickup field goals, and
the last 2 years have been insane. This year's playoffs is just on par with the last 2 years.
Yeah, I'm guessing that the Super Bowl is going to be just as much of an in the last 3 or 4 minutes.
It's going to be in California. There's a there's a mask mandate. Oh, it's going to be bad.
Oh, it's going to be real fun. Real fun.
But
Rams Chiefs?
Do protests work? That's where I was going with that, because that's going to segue into the next.
I think that protests of significant intimidation value can work.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah, the best weapon is a weapon you never need to fire.
Okay.
So
this is my question. This is one that I posted to some people the other day, and they were not happy at the comparison. Without Malcolm X, would MLK be known?
I think he still would.
Yeah, I think so.
Would the civil rights movement be the same? Would the civil rights acts have happened without the violence of Malcolm X and his followers?
I think that it would have taken much, much longer. I think that we wouldn't have seen it by the 1970s. I think it would have been the 80s, maybe the 90s before we actually saw that happen. And all of human history since then would in fact be different as a direct result of that.
Yes.
There needs to be, you know, an above ground and below ground components to a movement.
Somebody's been learning. Somebody's been listening.
Yeah. So, well, I have.
Yeah, seditious murder sabotage.
Yeah, I have that book,
I have
Yep.
I
Right
have
here.
a virtual copy of it.
Yeah.
and it's sitting in my library right next to that, and that. So
Well, it's the same way that the IRA and the Sinn Féin work.
well, yeah. I mean, Sinn Féin for the most part are, their purpose is to do the political work. I mean, that's kind of changed and depend. In the IRA, you can't really say the IRA because it's like, well, which one? But we're notoriously factional. But the
Sounds like
fact
another
is-
loose knit organization of people that.
Well, it
we've
isn't
heard
even
of.
a loose knit, or there is no. I mean, it's a bunch of separate organizations because it's not like the Provos and the Trues have jack all to do with each other, and the News don't
Right.
have anything to do with anybody else, and there's no hardcore army leadership anymore, and it's all kind of all over. But
Yeah. So
but without that violence, I mean, without the Troubles, you don't have Good Friday, and you don't have the promise for a soft border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. You don't have the promise that should the people of Northern Ireland ever vote to leave the United Kingdom and rejoin Ireland, that the UK will not interfere. So you need a certain level. There needs to be not necessarily violence, but a level of real intimidation of consequence needs to be delivered in order to force people who don't want to comply with your demands to do so.
that's the answer I was looking for. 11
don't
Oath
have to
Keepers
be violent.
charged for the January 6th riot. They have been charged with. They have been charged with seditious conspiracy. I want to read
It's
that.
like
again.
the kind of
Hold up.
thing that the founding fathers of the United States would have been charged with.
Seditious conspiracy is if two or more persons in any state or territory or any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose them by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof. They
Is
shall
it
each
bad
be
I'm
fined.
sitting here watching my front door, making sure it doesn't get kicked in
They
as
sh-
you're reading this?
They shall each be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So they face I think it's like a $500,000 fine and up to 20 years.
Well, yeah, it's bad that you're worried about that, Chris, because you are supposed to always keep your rifle by your side. So
It's right there. I mean, I'm not.
So let's see. So yeah, I want to concentrate on the.
I can always fight my way to my rifle if worse come to worse.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, way to violate Brandenburg v. Ohio on that one.
Well, we're talking about maybe some robbers might break in, and we're
In
simply
Minecraft.
prepared.
yeah. I mean,
So,
I live in such a high crime neighborhood; it could happen at any time.
We're prepared for a possible home invasion.
so January 6th was not an election, right? It was
Nope.
not inauguration day. There was no
Nope.
transference of power going on. So, but Stuart Rhodes, the founder and leader of the far-right Oath Keepers militia group, and I have a real hard time saying that with a straight face.
I mean, I guess I could say with modern far right, yeah.
Even the modern far-right's pretty far left.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Of the far-right Oath Keepers militia group, and 10 other members or associates have been charged with seditious conspiracy in the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol, authorities said on Thursday. So this is last Thursday. Despite hundreds of charges already brought in the year since the pro-Trump rioters stormed the Capitol in an effort to stop the certification of President Joe Biden's 2020 election victory, they were the first seditious charges levied in connection with the attack on January 6th.
Sedition.
Still call it an attack. It was
Yeah,
an
it was an
unscheduled
attack.
tour
Dude, there have been attacks on the White House. There's been
Yeah,
attacks
we talked about those
on
before.
Congress.
Yeah.
That was not an attack.
No. It marked a serious escalation in the largest investigation in the Justice Department's history. More than 700 people have been arrested and charged with federal crimes. Most of them have gotten probation. A few people have gotten like 4 to 6 months. I think there was one guy that got like 4.5 years because he hit a security guard.
Dude, if they ever arrest me and charge me with sedition, or treason, I am not only going to not do a plea deal, when they throw me in prison, I am wearing that as a badge of fucking honor. Like, I'm going to get a tattoo
Yeah.
in prison of my charge. I'm going to be so fucking proud of that.
As we're all sitting in the gulag, we're all getting
Yeah.
fucking prison tats of.
Yeah. FEMA Camp 000.
Hey, no. I'm District 5, according
There you go.
to my special.
Justice Department has more than 700 people have been arrested and charged with federal crimes, and highlighted the work that has gone into piercing together the most complicated cases. The charges rebuke, in part, the growing chorus of Republican lawmakers who have publicly challenged the seriousness of the insurrection, arguing that since none of the charged with sedition or treason, it could not have been so violent.
It wasn't violent.
It wasn't. The most violent act was the damn cop that shot Ashley Babbitt.
Yeah, the only person who died was a chick trying to climb up onto a barricade that was then shot by a cop who was hiding in a doorway. That is the only person who actually died during it. Yeah, as Brandon says, an attack so violent they obeyed the velvet ropes. Yes, in the Hall of Statues or whatever, they obeyed the velvet ropes as they went through. Clearly, they're madmen.
Still, one of my favorite pictures, though, is the picture of the guy carrying off Pelosi's lectern.
The smiley dude with the little the like his grandmother's knitted mittens on. That's like with the lectern and
yeah. The indictment alleges Oath Keepers for weeks discussed trying to overturn the election results and preparing for a siege by purchasing weapons and setting up battle plans.
Weapons that they do bring with them.
Hold on. They repeatedly wrote in chats about the prospect of violence and the need, as Rhodes alleged, wrote in one text, quote, to scare the shit out of Congress.
Well, I mean, yes, but no.
Congress should always be scared shitless of the people anyway,
yes.
first of all.
Yes. And on January 6th, the indictment alleges they entered the Capitol building with the large crowds of rioters who stormed past police barriers and smashed windows, injuring dozens of officers and sending lawmakers running.
Run, you fucking bastards, run!
Have the power.
Right. Authorities have said the Oath Keepers and their associates worked as if they were going to war, discussing weapons and training.
Oh, for God's sake.
Days before the attack, one defendant suggested in a text message getting a boat to ferry weapons across the Potomac River to their, quote, waiting arms.
Why wouldn't you just put them in your truck?
Right.
Are you going to stand on the front of the plow pointing?
I'm having a really hard time taking this AP article seriously. This is an AP Associated Press.
We'll get anything they say seriously. So I mean,
we'll get into that. Hold on. On January 6th, several members wearing camouflage combat attire were seen on camera shouldering their way through the crowd and into the Capitol in a military-style attack formation.
Yeah, they weren't. Military. There was no precision or attack form.
Oh,
none of that happened. None of that attack. No.
The indictment against Rhodes alleges Oath Keepers formed two teams or stacks that entered the Capitol. The first stack split up inside the building to separately go after the House and Senate. The second stack confronted officers in the Capitol Rotunda, the indictment said.
That's not how
Outs-
stacks work.
No.
Outside Washington, the indictment alleges the Oath Keepers had stationed two quote, quick reaction forces that had guns, quote, in support of their plot to stop the lawful transfer of power.
Quick
Ugh.
reaction.
Hold on. I'm gonna
Do
read
you
that
know what any of these words mean?
Hold on. Oath Keepers had stationed two quick reaction forces that had guns, quote, in support of their plot to stop the lawful transfer of power.
Yes,
But no
that's
power was
definitely
transferred on that day.
Yeah,
No power was
wasn't
transferred on
Slated
the
to
day.
be transferred.
No. There was no election that day. The indoctrination was not that day. There was no like big bills being talked about on that day. They were in a do nothing holding pattern.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing happening that day.
Yeah. And that's one of the funnier fucking thing. They had a QRF of what? Like Bubba and his two cousins who are drinking fucking PBR, which I am drinking. So, I mean, I
They
can't
got
totally shit on it, but
Sergeant.
they're drinking
Sergeant
PBR
Pork
next to
Chop.
their 1994 Silverado on the edge of town.
Watch out, they're bringing in the 1911s and the MP15s.
No. That group would be mini 14s.
No, they M1 Garens. They all have M1 Garens
yep.
with four clips of ammunition, and M1 Garand that's got.
He's got a
clip in
stock
it, and a
Remington
1911.
700.
Yeah, he's a sniper.
Oh my goodness.
He has a spread at 300 feet this big.
Right?
He's a sniper. Like he's got a burst scope on it. And
he's got a burst scope on an M1.
No, on a stock Remington 700, completely bone stock Remington 700 burst scope, and it's like a 4X, like
4X scope.
He's a sniper.
Oh, he's got one box of ammo that he bought 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's probably Remington white box.
Winchester white box. No, I'm thinking it's Remington Corlock.
Yeah, I was thinking Winchester, the Winchester white. That's just garbage.
I don't need to clean my gun.
Or it's Bubba hand loads that like, maybe it'll blow up the gun, maybe it'll work. Who knows?
Are you trying to say something, Andrew?
No, I'm saying like these guys like are really drunk as they're doing this, and they're like they can't remember what measurements they used or which powder.
Do I measure it in grains or grams? I'm trying to remember.
Now here's the thing. This is the thing that I kind of wanted to get into, and this could be in a whole episode on its own. Like these guys, they're mostly boomers. I don't mean that like in the age wise. I mean like the attitude wise, the principles wise, the belief wise. These guys are literally boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the last remnants, or I would say the last active remnants of what people think of when they say the militia movement. Right? Yeah. These guys are the 80s, 90s, early aughts militia. These are the same kind of guys that I trained with. Right, just total boomers. We got to restore the Constitution. Blah 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 blah. They better not cross our line in the sand. And
then they do.
I was gonna say, and it's the Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny thing. I dare you to cross this line, this line,
yep,
this line,
yep,
this line, this line.
Yep.
Keep retreating.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
Obama's
these people are as dangerous as a surly min pin. Okay.
Soccer moms are more dangerous. Literally, soccer moms are more dangerous.
Historically and provably, yes, they are. An angry soccer mom in traffic, in fact, is demonstrably more dangerous.
Here's one for you. Not only are soccer moms more dangerous, they're a more powerful voting bloc.
Yeah, they are. And they're better at organizing and at coordinating things and planning things. And, because it's it's Tuesday, and in 3 days I have to worry about Johnny's bar mitzvah. So like we need to like they're, and then the next day I have book club.
I have to get back to work on Monday.
Yeah, like they're very the soccer moms are extremely good at organizing and actually doing things and are far more dangerous than these. Yeah, and better at logistics than these wannabe LARPers.
So sedition charges are difficult to win and rarely used, but defendants face steep prison time of 20 years if convicted, compared with 5 for other conspiracy charges. The last time U.S. prosecutors brought such sedition charges was a case in 2010 in an alleged Michigan plot by members of the Harati militia to incite an uprising against the government.
Michigan, you say?
By the Harati. I don't know if you guys remember them.
Yeah,
they're the one. They're the supposedly, allegedly, they were the last ones to talk to Timothy McVeigh before the Oklahoma City bombing. And according to them, the Harati militias, they told him to fuck off and go away because he wanted to incite violence.
Yeah. And they were like,
yeah, they're like, we ain't about that. To incite uprising against the government, but a judge ordered acquittals to the sedition conspiracy charges at a 2012 trial, saying prosecutors relied too much on hateful diatribes protected by the First Amendment and didn't, as required, prove the accused ever had detailed plans for a rebellion.
Yep. Because they didn't, because they don't plan, because they're LARPers.
But you know, you don't see sedition charges against the Wolverine Watchmen.
Or the Proud Boys.
Or the Proud Boys.
Who are glowing so radioactively it boggles the mind.
Yes.
They glow so bad they're fucking Manhattan Project rejects.
They're those ghouls in Fallout. Like
see, most of the hundreds of people charged in the violence are facing lower level crimes. More than 150 people have been charged with assaulting police officers at the Capitol. Over 50 have been charged with conspiracy, but most people linked to the far right Proud Boys and anti-government oath keepers. So now they're anti-government oath keepers.
So are they far right or anti-government? I'm getting confused.
They're mutually exclusive things here.
I see. What they called them the first time? They called them
them far right at the beginning.
Let's see. The far right Oath Keepers Militia Group.
That's calling them militia is an insult to militias, but
yes. So now they're anti-government Oath Keepers, and there have been no sedition charges brought against the Proud Boys.
What a surprise! It's because they're all the FBI. Every single one of them.
Rhodes did not enter the Capitol building on January 6th, but is accused of helping put into motion the violence. Jonathan, they keep using that word. They keep using that word violence as if it like
that was malicious violence against a chair and AOC's shoes.
Yeah, insert the
they keep using that word. I don't think it means what they think it means.
I do not think it means what you think it means.
Exactly.
Yes. Brandon says start a pool on how many are FBI informants. I'm going for 9. Of the 11, okay. There have been rumors for years that Stuart Rhodes has been a federal informant. Years. I'm not talking like 2, 3, 5 years. I first learned about him in 2011. Oath Keepers was formed in 2009. I first learned about him in 2011. By 2012, when I was on the exit, there were already rumors.
Oh yeah, there were rumors about what's his face from that claimed to be
the leader of the Proud Boys.
Well, no, the guy that claimed to be,
his name is.
Yeah, the guy that claimed to be the leader of the big boys, the kind of the big one.
Mike, what's his face?
Yeah, Mike Dunn. And there were a bunch of rumors swirling among groups that he was an informant, and then lo and behold, it turns out he's an informant.
People lose their OPSEC when they get drunk.
Well, I remember this chat group that Andrew and I used to, maybe frequent once in a while. They talked about Mike Dunn, and the first thing Andrew said to me after he got brought up was like, "Yeah, he's a Fed."
He's Fed.
Yeah, immediately I was like, he's a Fed.
That was pretty
And
glowy.
and then all of a sudden, it was like 3 weeks later or something like, "Oh, look at that,
What?
he's a
You know,
Fed."
Well,
And
yeah,
you
and
did-
everybody with me.
You
At
didn't.
the
You
time.
didn't see. You didn't see a single denial from him either.
No.
Like when like it got brought up and he said, and he did that little drunk thing. He could he didn't try to play it off or nothing. He just poof disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Went back to
I mean,
Quantico.
that's the thing. Yeah, and that's the thing is he as soon as he got brought up, I was like, no, man, I would never work with that guy. That guy's clearly a Fed. And I got tons of pushback, like, oh no, no, I'm telling you, he's a federal informant. Like, I'm not debating, I am stating something. He's a federal informant. I'm telling you right now, that's the case.
Yep.
And I got all that and then lo and behold, look at that. He's a fucking federal informant, very clearly a Fed. Like, and that's what keeps happening is every time these militia groups and these seditious, dangerous groups get busted, 9 of the 10 people who get busted every single time turn out to be federal informants.
Like 26 people arrested for the Wolverine Watchmen, like 14 of them were Feds or Fed informants.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was the one group, it was like of the 13, 12 of them were were either actually FBI agents or FBI informants.
So, all right. Rhodes did not enter the building on January 6th, but is accused of helping put into motion the violence. Jonathan Mosley, an attorney who said he represented Rhodes, said Rhodes was supposed to testify before the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection in a deposition, but it got called off.
And instead they charged him.
Yes. Quote, he has been subject to a lot of suspicion as to why he wasn't indicted. I don't know if this is response to those discussions, but we think it's unfortunate. It's an unusual situation.
Yeah, it is a direct response because, like, no, he's not an informant. See, we're charging him. See, guys.
Yeah, Rhodes said in an interview with right-wing host that there was no plan to storm the Capitol and that the members who did so went rogue.
There was a guy that was standing at the gate going, "We're going to storm the Capitol, right?"
But he has continued to push the lie that the 2020 election was stolen, while posts on the Oath Keepers website have depicted the group as a victim of political persecution.
Oh my God.
Other defendants in the conspiracy have charged in court that the only plan was to provide security at the rally before the riot or protect themselves against possible attack from far left Antifa activists.
Oh.
I mean, come on, like you. This is so boomer. It's comedy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it.
No, there's no. It's again. This is the old way of thinking, right? This is the traditional military militia way of thinking, right? This isn't the decentralized, the asymmetrical warfare that we talk about. This is literally Boomer 101. Yes,
yeah,
Andrew, unorganized. Right, so
yeah, this is the because that's the thing, right? This is centered around that super traditional view of military action as well. That there's centralized leadership that's handing
the entire idea of the Oath Keepers is dedicated to that sort of. We took an oath to defend the Constitution and blah 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 blah. Like the Constitution's dead, bro. It has been for 100
very
years.
long time.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that's the whole point of Oath Keepers. It's about keeping your oath. The oath that you took when you went into the military or you went into the police, that oath that you took, it's about keeping that. That's supposedly what it's about. It's so pro-government and so pro big government
Yes.
It's obscene to try and claim anything else. Like
Yes.
it's blatantly, and like if you read their obscene ramblings, they're like so like flag humpy, it blows your mind. Like, wow, you guys masturbate with American flags while listening to Toby Keith singing American Soldier, don't you? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
it's the only way they can come. As
Other defendants in the conspiracy have argued in court that they only provide security to protect themselves against far-left Antifa activists. Rhodes, a former U.S. Army paratrooper and Yale Law School graduate,
I'm sure he has nothing to do with the FBI.
founded the Oath Keepers in 2019. The right-wing extremist group recruits current and former military, police, and first
So are they
responders.
right-wing extremists or are they anti-government? I'm confused.
Again, I'm confused. That's what is it here?
Let's see.
You know why they said anti-government though? They said anti-government because an editor went through that and decided that they were
Yes.
saying right-wing too often,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
right-wing extremists too often, and was like, well, let's shake it up a little bit.
Yes. Authorities say he held a go-to meeting called days after the election, telling the followers to go to Washington and let then President Donald Trump know, quote, that the people are behind him. Rhodes
What
told
people?
members they should prepare to fight Antifa and that some Oath Keepers should, quote, stay on the outside and be prepared to go in armed if necessary.
Okay,
And the
if you're
fucking-
talking
Hold on,
about shit
hold on,
like this, why are you
hold on.
doing it on a go-to meeting?
Yeah,
No,
like they're in
not-
text messages and
Hold on, not only that, this happened at the Capitol building. Trump was at
The White
the
House.
White House. They're not the same building.
Yeah, they're not. They're in fact, what, over a mile apart, a couple of miles apart.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Quote, we're going to defend the president, the duly elected president, and we call on him to do what needs to be done to save our country. Because if you don't, guys, you're going to be in a bloody civil war, and a bloody, you can call it an insurrection, or you can call it a war or fight. That's a quote from Rhodes during that meeting also.
Red flags all over the place.
If you're actually using those terms and you're actually just openly, because that's the thing, right? Like, if you are actually trying to fly under government radar and you're trying to foment some sort of an insurrection and things in a post Edward Snowden world, you are not doing it with text messages or, or GoToMeeting or Skype or, on YouTube. You're not doing that, right? Like
No.
that's not something that you're doing. So
okay,
if you are, then you're either stupid or
Extremely
you're
stupid.
glowy.
all right, hold on. On the afternoon of the 6th, authorities say Rhodes told the group over Signal, quote, all I see Trump doing is complaining. I see no intent by him to do anything. So the Patriots are taking it into their own hands. They've had enough.
gosh, is that all he did? Is that maybe all you fucking did? And it's like you
around
just complained
2:30 p.m.
louder.
Yeah, around 2:30 p.m. Rhodes had a 97-second phone call with Kelly Megg, the reputed leader of the group's Florida chapter, who was part of the military-style stack. About 10 minutes later, Rhodes sent a photo to the group showing the southeast side of the Capitol with the caption, quote, south side of the U.S. Capitol, Patriots pounding on doors. Around that same time, those in the stack formation forcibly entered the Capitol.
You know what? You know what a stack formation is? It's a line. We call that a line. He was in queue.
Oh my goodness!
He was queuing. Is
It's
what
so-
that's like in Ireland. That's what we call it. Oh, I'm just gonna stand here in queue then. Like that's what he was doing right there. He's
He
just
was waiting his turn to go through the door.
yes, he was standing. It's a military style formation. It's a fucking line. It's a fucking line. If you know anything about how that shit actually works, that's a fucking line. Yeah, he was in a military style formation. If that's your definition of it, he was waiting in line, probably between a pair of velvet fucking routes.
It's just it's so bad.
Well, I mean,
that,
how
like-
often do you in the military do you stand in fucking line too? I mean,
See, now here's the other thing about this. Like this is so like what they did is just when I say bad, I don't mean like a negative bad. I mean bad as in like it's not sedition. It's
no.
it's barely violence. it's not it's none of the things that they're being charged with. When I say bad, what I mean is just sad. Right? That's what I mean. It was so that what they did was so sad, and it had such a net effect for the government and zero effect for the people that went into it and for Trump supporters and all this other stuff. So like it was literally pro glowy. The events that transpired.
I mean, you know, if you think that the January 6th spicy tour was organically done by the people, then you probably also think that the Polish military attacked a German radio station in 1939 and held the radio station people hostage, but the heroic German army.
Don't forget the USS Liberty attack.
The USS Liberty,
Gulf of Tonkin.
The Gulf of Tonkin incident. You really think
pigs.
Yeah, you really the Bay of Pigs was openly a CIA operation.
Yes.
The USS Liberty attack, what's the one that was in is it just called the Gulf of Tonkin? Because it's what was that ship? Because it had just been attacked the day prior, and I can't remember what it is. Maine? Was it the Maine?
The USS Maine?
Was it the Maine in Vietnam? South Coast Vietnam said it was attacked repeatedly, and
something like
it
that.
wasn't.
Something like that.
But like you probably, if you think that was organic, you think that those things actually happened.
Yes.
And I assure you, they were not. You probably also think that the drone that went down off the coast of Iran, where Iran was like, we had nothing to do with that, was probably still Iran. Like,
if you couldn't see this coming, then you have terrible strategy. Like there were literally police outside waving people in. There were literally police and security guards holding doors open for them. Yeah. Right. It was an
unscheduled tour that went slightly off the rails.
If your OPSEC PERSEC is so bad that you can't see that happening, then you're a puppet. You're a puppet on a string, bro. That's what this is.
Well, more than that, I mean, even if you're there and you're looking around and you're seeing everything that's going on, if you can't see that this is a setup, then why? Why?
I mean,
you deserve what you get.
Why? Because controlled opposition.
Yeah. This is and that's what this is about. This is about making sure that the people who are anti-government are corralled into these nice, neat little places. Remember, and they're still sitting there as bleeding sheep.
Remember, they got the domestic violence or the Domestic Terrorist Act passed because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They got all that new funding passed because of this.
And now you have the Department of Justice declaring parents who speak out at school board meetings as domestic terrorists.
Well, not only that, but like, you remember all the National Guard and everything they did at the Capitol, right? Right. Mm-hmm. The Capitol defense and all this other stuff. But now the war in Iraq is over, and we have all those people. They're not going to stand down. They're not going to go into a peacetime and lower the numbers in the military, right?
Well, remember the military just upped their enlistment bonus for combat critical MOSs, where it's now $50,000
bonus.
$50,000. When I went in, I got 20 grand, and I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, and you went in with like actual like.
Well, combat critical MOS is just 11 Bravos, so like just infantry, like that is as combat critical as you get. But the guy being willing to pull the trigger, that's pretty much as combat critical as you can get. But like they went up to 50 grand because they're having such a hard time now because of the anti-government sentiment as a result of the COVID response. People don't want to go into the military, so they're like, well, what if we give you 50 grand?
Yeah, Mr. Irwin.
Holy crap, Nick Irwin,
brother,
dude,
Mr. Enemy of the State. Think Podstash. What's up, bro? We're talking about enemies of the state. We're talking about Oath Keepers and Stuart Rhodes and his boys being arrested for seditious conspiracy. Yeah, let that one roll around for a second.
Yeah, this is, again, like I said, if you think that January 6th was organic and led by people, then you also probably think that in 1939, for no apparent reason, a group of Polish military attacked a German radio station.
Oh yeah,
and that the brave Fallschirmjäger came in and saved the day.
Remember when Captain America punched Hitler? I love that part of the history book.
Yeah, that's, or when Hitler got blown up by the Inglourious Bastards in a movie theater in France. That's
it's so bad. And then the rest of the article is only like 2 paragraphs, and it talks about him being arrested. More than 70 defendants remain detained on riot charges. At least 183 defendants have pled guilty to riot-related charges. At least 78 of them have been sentenced, including 35 people who received jail to prison sentences or time already served.
My favorite part about the January 6th thing, the footage from it, was that like middle-aged woman sobbing because she had been maced, and like the cops weren't on their side, going, "It's a revolution." Because that's frequently said during revolutions like that.
Oh goodness. The only person harmed was Ashley Babbitt, and then like 4 Capitol police officers committed suicide.
Yeah, and she was shot by a cowardly cop because she wasn't armed. She wasn't doing anything. She was just climbing over a bunch of furniture that had been put in a hallway.
Well, they had to do something, right? They have to do something like that so that they can push the narrative, right? It's just the same reason Stuart Rhodes and the Oath Keepers have been charged, right? Is to push the narrative, right? Because the narrative for the last year, nobody's been charged with sedition, nobody's been charged with treason, right? For the last year, the last year, nobody's been talking. That's been the punchline from the right from the right. Well, now they have someone that charged with sedition, and the left can go, see, sedition.
Yeah, they were charged with sedition. They're
insurrection. Yeah,
seditious, treasonous bastards. I'm talking about the founders of the United States here.
I'm still gonna be around, guys, but I gotta go and grab the little one. She's upstairs screaming. So
yeah, family comes first, bro.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, like that's the thing, though, is like this is every time the United States government labels somebody as seditious or treasonous or that anti-government, I'm always like, that those were all the things, and like domestic terrorists, those were all the things that they said that King George said about the rebellious colonists in the 1770s. So if you actually like want to label us that, cool beans, man. I'm in good company.
Well, no, when you get called something like that, you have to look at who's calling you it.
Yeah.
Right. And being called rebellious, being called seditious, being called an insurrectionist, being called an insider, and all those sort of things from the people that literally defended Pedo Island, defended the people who were on Epstein's plane, defend the vaccine mandates, defend forced masking of little kids,
Defend the drug war.
defend the drug war. It's just all those sort of things, like being called an insurrectionist, being called an outsider, being called a rebellion by those people. Yeah, thank you for noticing. Finally.
You're anti-government. Well, the government is tyrannical, so like.
Oh my God! You hate the tyrannical things we're doing to you. You're so terrible. What?
Shakira.
Excuse me for not like being beat.
Yeah,
if you don't like your bully, you can move to another bully's territory.
Yeah, go to a different school and get bullied by somebody else. It's
all right.
Fucking. Oh my God! I just increasingly, and the funny thing is that we're seeing even the left wing media finally start to acknowledge that we've passed a point of no return here, that we are heading down a path to a civil war. We are heading down a path to a total collapse and a civil war.
Business Insider had an article about it a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like we're finally actually seeing everybody at Forbes, I think, mentioned something. And like, we're finally seeing this start to get talked about.
We're having these sort of discussions at a time when the Federal Reserve is about to ramp up the interest rates, which is going to slow down the economy. So we're going to have a slower economy. We're going to have higher gas prices coming out of all the COVID bullshit, while having discussions about secession and civil war.
That sounds familiar.
And just go listen to an article or go listen to an episode of the Status Quo called We're America.
Yeah, episode 98, in case anybody was wondering.
Yes.
Go ahead and go listen to that one. I feel like this is historically familiar that this has happened. It's this is the exact same.
It's almost
shit
like history repeats itself.
I know. Well, the Mayans always thought that history was cyclical. So
okay. Let's all right, now that we've cracked on government for a long time, let's talk about something the government actually did right.
That happened.
FDA deregulates French dressing.
Well, it's about goddamn time. I'm sick of having to buy all of my French dressing on the black market.
The Association for Dressing and Sauces.
That's a thing?
I didn't realize that.
I want to work for them. That's just awesome. Oh, I'm a sauce man.
Let's see.
Seems kind of sus, man.
The Association for Dressing and Sauces was founded in 1926 and represents manufacturers of salad dressing, mayonnaise, and condiment sauces and suppliers. What?
I didn't realize that was a thing.
I want to work for this organization just so I can be like, I'm a ranch lobbyist. People are like, for like against BLM,
that's how you became Jessica's best friend. You're a ranch lobbyist.
I'm a ranch lobbyist. Like
she literally has a ranch bottle tattoo on her forearm.
Like just go up to random senators with like a thing of cheese curds and a little cup of ranch, and like, if you tried this, it'll change your fucking life. Like
walking around with nuggies and ranch. Here, try this.
It's just, oh my God, right?
Okay, so the Association for Dressings and Sauces' decade-long battle to revoke the standards for French dressing has finally come to an end, with the Food and Drug Administration agreeing to deregulate a label the group said, quote, restricts innovation. The decision from the FDA revokes the so-called, quote, standard of identity on the book since 1950 that dictates what ingredients manufacturers must include in order to market their product as French dressing.
So just
hold on. One more paragraph. The group has since 1998 sought to eliminate the standard for French dressing, arguing that the quote non-standardized pourable dressing world has seen an explosion of products to meet the consumer preferences, and that French dressing quote no longer serves the benchmark for other dressings because of the wide variation in composition to meet consumer interest.
Can you imagine being the
What
person
the
who had to
hell?
passionately argue this? I just like you had to sit down and pen this like
Hold on.
with
All
a
right.
straight face. Like,
In its final rule posted Wednesday, the FDA determined that the quote standard of identity of French dressing no longer promotes honesty and fair dealing in the interest of consumers, while removing the term would give manufacturers quote greater flexibility.
I don't know enough
In-
about French dressing to
in
have an
French
opinion
dressing,
on the standardized definition of French
Uh,
dressing.
I didn't realize
Uh,
there was a standardized
hold on.
definition.
Is there one on Italian too?
Hold on.
How about balsamic
That's
vinaigrette?
the kicker.
Yeah.
That's the kicker. Hold on. The 1950 definition of French dressing wasn't particularly specific, even noting that tomato-based ingredients were quote permitted but not required. Low-fat varieties, however, were not meeting the standard that 35% of the product by weight must be vegetable oil. That's the whole standard of identity for French dressing.
That's
So
the
we can
only limiting.
deregulate.
That's the only limiting factor is that 35% of the volume must be vegetable oil.
We can deregulate a tomato infused vegetable oil, but we cannot deregulate things like other plants that people want to put in their bodies.
They lobbied since 1998. So
And
for
it took-
for 22 years.
Yeah, and it took
Oh, sorry,
24 years.
24
It
years.
took
24 years.
24 years to
they've been-
deregulate
they've been
tomato infused vegetable oil.
They've been lobbying longer than my adult son, who is in the chat, has been alive.
to deregulate
Tomato infused
French
vegetable
dressing.
oil.
Yes.
Yeah, the fact that French dressing had a legal definition kind of blows my mind.
Since the
Well,
1950s.
actually, it doesn't blow my mind, and it doesn't blow my mind for a reason.
Because
So,
government.
well, not even just because government. So, I'm a big fan of liquor, and as a result of that, I and being a history major, and being a general nerd, I turned into a liquor nerd. And what most liquors have legal definitions. So, like bourbon, in order to call yourself bourbon, you have to meet
Bourbon and
specific-
Kentucky bourbon and
yeah,
rye
specific
and all this.
things. Yeah, rye, you have to meet specific things. To be a Scotch whiskey and to be called a Highland Scotch whiskey or a Lowland Scotch whiskey or an Islay, you have to meet specific definitions, legally imposed definitions. In the case of Scotch, since the 18th century, legally imposed definitions. So these things are very specific to define them. This is the real French Revolution. Down with the ranch overlords in the chat.
Oh, Jason, I love you.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh.
But like, so I understand, like, it's a lot of it began really the origins of this stuff can trace themselves all the way back to European monarchies and how they define certain things to be considered certain ales. Like a Belgian tripel has to meet certain requirements to be considered a tripel, and they're legally imposed. So I understand where this originates, and it's about 400 or 500 years old. This idea that you regulate the definitions of food products, and what makes a food product.
It's really no different than like copywriting, right? Intellectual property, right? You can't use our word unless you include things that we say have to be included for you to use our word.
Right, and I understand wanting to define, because if I go to a store,
it's like you can't call something a chocolate chip cookie You know, if it has, you know, cranberries or something like
Well,
it's
going back to the
it really is
liquor,
like it's just a completely innocuous term to use. You're just using that term because you're basing it off of that. You're not actually that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I understand the desire to standardize, right? Like, especially when it comes to liquors, because
Mhm.
like, you know, you don't want somebody to say, "Oh, this is a Kentucky bourbon," and it's not even remotely close to a Kentucky
Yeah.
bourbon. You want your consumers to be able to understand that what you're throwing on the label is definitely what it is.
I
However,
don't want somebody
there
to
are
sell me cheap ass Canadian whiskey and try to tell me it's Scotch.
exactly right. Canadian whiskey sucks. So no one wants to drink that. No one who owns taste buds that actually like function wants to drink
Oh.
Canadian whiskeys. And yes, that includes Crown. If you drink Crown, I don't care. Fuck you. You have no taste buds. You suck. Anyway, so
Oh, so, nobody's gonna bring up Fireball. No.
Oh,
Fire,
fuck
Fireball's an
Fireball.
abomination. That is an abomination. That is an
let's-
affront.
What's worse than Fireball is that fucking peanut butter liquor or peanut butter whiskey that they keep
I-
seeing all over the place.
You know
I
the
don't-
big one. The
I
big
don't
one
mind
around
that.
here now is the cotton candy vodka.
Interesting. How
Yeah.
would you? You know what? I don't want to know.
No,
Anyway,
okay.
No, what I'm saying though is there are plenty within food industries, within liquor industries, there are plenty of regulating bodies, right, that are just private. That
Josh,
then
you must hate your mom.
certify.
Josh said, I remember growing up making my mom her hot toddies with Canadian whiskey.
Ew,
Yeah, I
Like
grew
I said,
up.
Josh hates his mom.
that's
I
terrible.
grew up stealing peppermint schnapps from my dad and mixing it with hot chocolate.
What the? Well, that actually doesn't sound half bad.
That's not bad.
But anyway, so no, what I'm saying though is that
when I was made it.
there there's tons of self-regulating bodies that certify things like with the kosher certifications and stuff, right? They're independent governing bodies. They're not, or certifying bodies. They are not part of the government. You don't need force to regulate those definitions. You can have people who have a published, these are our standards of testing and these are the requirements that it has to meet for us to certify this. And then companies just willingly submit their products to them for certification. And if it's got that stamp, you then know that's certified by this organization. I know what their standards are, which means I know what is in that bottle meets their standards. Awesome. You see the same thing with accreditation for education, the education industry, where accreditors can, there are accreditation like companies that their sole goal is to say, yes, this educational organization meets our minimal standards to be certified by us, that it does this, 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 and this, so that if you're going to go there, what you're going to get out of it, that it does meet these standards. And it doesn't require government force to do that. The fact that government force, somebody said, needed to intervene in French fucking dressing is the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard.
For 70 years.
Yeah.
70 years. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's jump onto this last article. I have two more, but let's just jump on this last one. Because Ohio siblings face felony charges after they chopped down a 250-year-old tree to sell it for lumber. Right? There's some kickers on this one. Hold on. Two siblings were charged with felony theft after they cut down a centuries-old black walnut tree and arranged to have it logged and sold for lumber. The tree was one of the largest of its kind in the state, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Todd Jones, 56, and Laurel Hoffman, 54, accused of chopping down the tree, estimated to be more than 250 years old in September last year. Jones claimed the tree was part on his property in Strongville, a suburb about 16 miles outside of Cleveland. Prosecutors charged Jones and Hoffman, arguing that the tree was not on his property. Rather, they said the tree grew in the region owned by Cleveland Metro Parks, which oversees 24,000 acres of nature reserves across the greater Cleveland area. The charging document said the stump was about 8 feet outside their property line.
That's enough for a margin of error on surveying.
Yes.
8 feet.
Yes. Both Hoffman and Jones were charged on December 29th, each receiving one count of theft by deception and falsification. Both charges are felonies that carry a maximum sentence of 18 months in prison. Yeah.
If the tree is on, first of all, government doesn't own anything. It doesn't actually. It can't. own anything. Only private individuals can have property rights. Government can own nothing.
Yes.
So regardless of whether this was or was not on their property, this is absurd. But if it's on their property, fuck you. So it's 250 years old. Good. That means it's really good quality wood. If I want to cut the fucking thing down, then I should be able to cut the fucking thing down. Personally, I disagree with that decision if it's still a healthy tree. But
I agree with that. But 8 feet.
Yeah, within a known margin of error.
Yes.
For surveying.
Easily within a known margin of error. Let's see. We got about 15 minutes left. Let's do this last one. A drive-through window saved his business, but now he's being forced to shut it down.
Is it a strip club?
No.
Ah, damn it.
Sadly, we did not have a stripper or article this week. When public health, Stuart Rose, depending on, never mind. When public health orders closed his restaurant's doors, Robert Balliterez, Balitierrez, Balliterez?
Probably.
Sounds right.
All right, so Robert opened a window. Now city zoning officials are closing that too. For the past 13 years, Balliterez had owned and operated a Mexican restaurant, Taco Boy, from its current location on a busy Mission Street in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. When the pandemic hit in 2020, Taco Boy, like all food and drink establishments in Michigan, were required by the state to shut down the dining room that brought in almost all of its revenue. In response, Balliterez decided to open up a dormant drive-through window that had come with the building and had been used by its previous occupants. That's a pharmacy and a restaurant. This facilitated enough takeaway orders to keep Taco Boy, a 50-year-old business Balliterez inherited from his father, on its feet during the worst of the COVID-19. For the time, this proved uncontroversial. Late last year, however, a city official told Balliterez that the drive-through window was not allowed by Mount Pleasant's zoning code.
Oh, it gets so much worse, though, as I'm reading through this. I want to fucking throw things.
You want to take it over?
The about the neighboring businesses?
Yes, go ahead.
Neighboring businesses have their own drive-thrus, and the city concedes the Balliterez's drive-through window is causing no noise or traffic impacts. Nevertheless, the city says it'll have to close. Quote, without the drive-thru, I don't even know what I would be able to make it. I would have to let some employees go. It's going to hurt, Balliterez tells Reason. He says his drive-thru brought in about 20% of his sales last year and continues to be a significant portion of his business. At issue is a provision in Mount Pleasant's zoning code, mandated by state law, that drive-thrus must have a minimum of 200 feet of stacking space. That's how many cars can fit in the drive-thru, without impeding either the on-site movement of vehicles or access to the property from the street. Why does it matter if it impedes your on-site vehicle movement? It's your site. What?
Right?
Because those 200 feet extend into Taco Boy's parking lot, the city staff said it interferes with on-site movement of vehicles and thus has to go. It goes, the 200 feet reaches into his own parking lot.
It's his fucking parking lot. It's his parking lot. The only, he
owns the property. He's not even leasing it. He owns the property.
Right next door to my business, right? I share a parking lot. Well, I kind of share a parking lot. I share a drive-through thing with a coffee and wine shop.
To top it off, because of Michigan's ongoing coronavirus restrictions, the parking lot's not even being used.
Yeah, it's not even being used
because the dining room isn't open.
To put in perspective how ridiculous this is, right next to where my business is here, and right next to it is a restaurant that is primarily, it's called Java Vino. It's coffee and wine, and then they have food. They have a drive-through window in between our two buildings. That drive-through window can accommodate 2 vehicles waiting before they start to interfere with through traffic. Now, granted, my lease runs all the way up through this one parking lot that they do wind up blocking, but I never have enough customers at any one time that I give a shit. Like, I don't care. It doesn't interfere. It's not a big deal. They have no room behind that window. So oftentimes they'll have people curled up into their own parking lot. They'll have to reroute people through they're willing to do that so that they can keep using the drive-through window because of how much business that pulls in. if they want to do that, it's their goddamn parking lot.
Yeah, Brandon here says, yet a McDonald's drive-thru in the morning would practically wrap around the whole parking lot. We have an In-N-Out, In-N-Out burger directly across the street from a Chick-fil-A. Right, and there have been stories of people waiting in the drive-thru for 45 minutes before they can order, and then another 20 minutes before they get the food. So they're in line for over an hour, and they will especially with like In-N-Out. The In-N-Out drive-thru will it'll go outside their parking lot, it'll go around the back of a 7-Eleven, and then back through a parking lot and cross perpendicularly the drive-through areas for a Taco Bell, a Carl's Jr., and then all the way back out to the Outback Steakhouse parking lot, which is probably right about half a mile.
Dude, at that point, I'm just DoorDashing that shit. It's DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Eat Street. I don't care, but I ain't sitting in line for that long. I'm just ordering it.
No.
I will pay.
That's almost
someone
as bad as some of the Culver's restaurants around here, where you sit outside for.
Yeah, I will literally pay someone $10 to wait in line for that kind of time to get me my food so that I don't have to. I am totally okay with that. Yay, capitalism. All right, yes. And that's fucking.
I'm looking at that line. I'm going somewhere else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it says Belchieres argues he's singled out as neighboring businesses with drive-thrus that aren't up to code are allowed to operate unmolested. He also argues that his drive-thru hasn't generated any complaints or any issues for surrounding property owners. And the city doesn't disagree on that latter point.
The law is the law.
The city doesn't even disagree that, well, yeah, I mean, you're not actually causing any problems.
Judge Dredd out there with a my name's Judge Dredd. I work for the zoning department.
Yeah. He's got this super dystopian future looking fucking tape measure.
Call Stuart Rhodes. We're gonna occupy Taco Boy.
Yeah, what the yeah, a report prepared by city staff on Belchieres' drive-thru notes that, quote, there have been no complaints regarding traffic coming or going from the site or issues associated with noise with adjoining properties, end quote.
So there's no issue. There's no actual issue for anybody. It's just because he doesn't quite meet the standards set forth by their bullshit zoning rules.
Yeah, literally no one is being affected negatively.
I just had to put Christopher front and center to show off the anarcho-tot. All right.
This is her second appearance on the show.
Yeah, it is. But no one is complaining. No one has said anything.
No one is complaining.
No one cares.
The drive-through traffic backs up into his own parking lot, which isn't being used because the lobby is closed by the government edict. It's fucking ridiculous, man. It's so stupid. It's so arbitrary.
Are you fucking kidding?
Well, and this just illustrates just how arbitrary all of it is. Yes. I mean, just from the top down, all of it is arbitrary.
Yeah.
And this is just one of the more absurd examples of that.
Yeah, it says, but the lack of stacking space makes that a moot point, says Brian Kench, dick, a building official with the Mount Pleasant city government and certified asshole. Kench tells Reason that non-conforming drive-thrus are grandfathered into the stacking space requirements so long as they've been in continuous operation since the rules came into effect. He said, if they cease operation for a year or more, it would have to comply with current zoning requirements. That means that Belchieres' drive-thru, which was shuttered for over a decade because he didn't see a need for it, can't be grandfathered in, even though it's built into the building, and instead has to meet the new requirements.
Yeah. It's insane. It's just, it's retarded. It's absolutely fucking retarded. It is asinine.
The window has always been there. It only backs traffic up into his own parking lot.
Which is
no one has complained. No
Yes.
one has a problem with it. It's interfering with nothing. But because it doesn't meet this arbitrary edict from Der Fuhrer, now it's a problem.
Yes.
Yep.
So, all right. One quick note. I'm going to throw an amendment out there because I'm getting chastised in the chat for not having a stripper story. Vanessa Demopoulos, Demopoulos. She quit her job as a stripper 6 weeks ago to focus on her recent training camp. That is a 13-year pole dancing career she quit. And she won her UFC debut.
Wow.
Fucking epic. Yeah.
She also says that pole dancing helped with her Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
It probably did because you learn how to
have no
move
doubt.
your legs very well for that. That's super freaking cool. That is super cool. I mean, our Jason and Chris, you follow her too. Olivia Rondeau. She also got placed in her first ever Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition today.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's super cool.
I want to throw a quick local story out there. I know he's a bit of a FUD, but the guys from Andrew and my favorite gun shop, the Village Gunsmith, were recently spotted on today's released episode of Off the Ranch from Matt Carricker.
It's a Demo Ranch guy.
Yep.
So that's super cool.
Wanted to throw that out there because that's super cool.
Yep. Yeah, they're on his show. So how cool is that? Yeah, it's that's super neat because that's at SHOT Show. They're out at SHOT Show. Well, we're out at SHOT Show.
Yeah, they're on their way back now, but well, Tim and Caroline are back, but
credits 13 years of stripping for her slick jiu-jitsu skills.
Yes. So
dude, that's awesome. That's super cool. That
I'll drop that link in our group chat.
Yeah, like you gotta happily celebrate like when somebody like when a stripper turns into a fighter and then kicks ass. Like that's fucking awesome. I'm still working on designs for Anarchy Among Friends merch. Hopefully one of them that I want to do is powered by stripper glitter.
Well,
there you go.
If you go back a few episodes, there's that T-shirt that I was wearing. We can take orders for those. I have a source.
A patch that just says seditious stripper.
Seditious strippers.
I like it.
There you go.
I have a number of designs right now that I already have. I'm trying to come up with a few more. I want to launch like 5-10 all at once for t-shirt designs and get some stuff out there, but hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. I'm still working on it, trying to do it. My graphic design skills aren't incredible because I'm not a trained graphic designer and I'm not Mr. Cartoon, I'm afraid. So
all right, let's throw some plugs out and get out of here.
Buy Derica's book.
Yes. And get well, Derica. Derica caught the coof. And she has been not feeling well. Not bad, but she's feeling better, but she sounds like a 70-year-old Russian tank driver right now.
In old country. Oh, yeah, you said in the chat that it's a ghost, and I had to reply with the gif from Supernatural of Dean when he had the curse where he was scared of everything. So he's just like screaming, "Oh, it was scary."
She sounds like one of 13 ghosts.
Yeah, she does a bit. Yeah, but hopefully she gets better soon. We can have her back on the show soon, and everything works out.
Yes, little one, we heard you.
Yes. Use code InkTanarchist15 for 15% off if you want to care for your beard like a Viking on thebeardstruggle.com. They have beard oils, they have beard washes that are fantastic. They have beard conditioner. It smells amazing. They have their new platinum scents. Yes, I know, Kate. Jeez.
She's getting frustrated sitting here.
But the new scents are fantastic. The older scents, gold scents, I highly recommend Odin's Virtue for that. And again, that's Inked Anarchist 15 at thebeardstruggle.com. Check out Dave at Poppins Patches. I posted a picture on my Twitter of my new patch, morale patch sheet that includes several patches from him. Several people have asked me where I got a bunch of those. I got them from Poppins Patches. They're fantastic. Definitely worth it. I'm also seeing specifically that this one is getting super popular again.
There you go. There's my patch wall.
Nice. Yeah, mine's not hung up yet. But that's that Boog Shark one. If you want it, you get it from him. And he's a big supporter of the show, and we definitely appreciate it. So make sure that you go check him out. Patches are reasonably priced. They're very high quality. They look great. They
I
hold
love
up
his.
really, really
I
well.
love the quality of his patches.
Yeah,
Spirit
very,
of
very good.
Spirit of Resistance also.
Oh yeah, Spirit. I have a bunch of Spirit of Resistance patches. They're also
This is
really
the
high
Spirit of
quality.
Resistance one.
Yep, I have that same one. I have the Secede or Die. I have
that one.
The Come and Take It with the RPG 7 on it, which I quite appreciate.
I don't have that one.
They're definitely awesome. Also, speaking of patches, flags, net gaiters, which I've been using as a mask since we have to wear masks at work again.
This fantastic thing
flag that
behind me.
Yep, the flag you see behind Chris, the Anarcho Unity flag, they're the Boog Unity flag that I showed you a little while ago on this show. That is all from Boog Boogie on Twitter. It's Boog Boogie 79 on Twitter.
Yeah.
Check him out. Hit him up. He can get you hooked up with stuff. He has Boog flags for basically all 50 states. So
he's also working
on
on producing that Untermensch patch that I was talking about earlier.
So, all right, let's you got anything else?
Real quick, I got one last thing. I want a big F in the chat from everybody. This will be the last week that I have the beard.
That's right.
I am being required to shave because I have to wear an N95 at work.
Are you going to go with the mutton chops?
If I want a divorce, maybe.
What you need to do is you need to put the mask on and use the trimmer and just make a little line around that and shave everything within that line and leave everything else.
That's what I was talking about doing, but like I said, I've been threatened with a divorce. I've been threatened with being shaved in my sleep.
Just go full neck beard, man. Just full neck beard.
full neck beard.
Yeah.
If you go full neck beard, you have to wear a fedora.
I was gonna say start wearing a fedora and like a suit jacket over t-shirts for no apparent reason.
So we'll see what we come up with. This is the week where I have to make a decision. So
you gotta get the mutton chops going, and then everywhere you go, you just go bounce, go wow wow.
Walk around with 70s porn music.
There you go.
Yes, or dress like a Civil War general.
There you go.
One of the two. I mean, either way.
Bell bottom corduroys and lamb chops.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Go that direction. But yes,
girls are watching you walk by. Beard. Oh yeah, he's definitely got an STD.
if an HPV infection were a person.
Oh yeah, he carries a python. All right. On that note, give us a piece of life advice.
Don't sweat the petty things. Don't pet the sweaty things.
Don't pet the sweaty things.
Don't pet the sweaty
That sounds awfully boring.
That does sound boring.
No. You're still gonna pet damp things, but not the ones that are sweating. That's
oh well, fair enough.
All right. Buy Andrew's feet pics, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.